I'm just gonna right, think we're good,
Okay.
Fabs.
Yeah, so we were talking about how to make a prediction for the results, of a bending moment, deflection, and shear, in case, beyond the limit of YS as stated in Wafflesuite, which is 120 millimeters. I think this is pretty easy exercise, and it depends how far you are from this limit value. No, so the more distant you are, the more inaccurate the prediction might be. However, it depends on how the results that you get from Wafflesuite look like. For values that are under 120. So I explain myself better. If it was me, or if it happens to me to do that, simply I check the values for, say, deflection, bending moment, and shear for values that are lower than 120. So, for example, I can do, I don't know, maybe 100, 120, 120. And then here I put the results that I can get from Wafflesuite on Excel. So on Excel, I created this kind of table, and then for each of these parameters, I plot the results on a graph. So for example, delta, YS, and I get something like that for all of them. So there would be another one for example, bending moment, and same for the shear. So bending moment might be slightly different. Of course, what I'm plotting now is absolutely wrong. You know, it's not necessarily representative of any real case. And after that, I get from Excel the trend line. And I ask the software to give me the equation for this trend line. So the software will plot an approximated trend line, and there will be a value. Sorry, not a value, a function for a similar here. We get a function. Sorry. Where's the eraser? Here we go. And simply by using this function, I can change the value and put, say, 130 YS, which is the X in the function. And I get the epsilon, which is the Y, sorry, which is delta M and Y for this new value. So that's pretty much what I would do. And this estimate, or this prediction, shouldn't be too wrong, especially if you're close enough to 120, so 130, 140, or 150 is already a little bit more distant. But again, it depends on the results that you get. So for example, if you have 150, and when you plot, the numbers are very, if you go a little bit back, 90, 80 if you want, if they're all pretty right on a line, or if you plot them and they are right on a function like this, so without too much of a mistake, it's reasonable to expect that the 150 is already also on that line. But for projects on Class E soil, engineering judgment is paramount. So it's not something, the results can be taken from the software without any judgment and reasoning, because there is a risk for failure for any system, really, for such high values. Is that clear, Chris?
Yeah, Fabs, the last bit there, I think you just muffled the mic, but you could hear that pretty clearly. So yeah, so basically just you generate Wafflesuite at 100, 110, 120, get those values that it produces, and then map that over over a trend line in Excel to be able to graph, essentially, but past that 120 up until that kind of 150 is where we've started getting those inquiries for. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
And in terms of amount of work, it's not, it's not much, because you can grab the results from Wafflesuite in 3-4 minutes, probably all of them, because you don't need to change all the parameters, just one or yes. And on Excel, to do an exercise of this kind takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Is there any there's no point going back further than that? Just getting those 3 is enough to be able to get that trajectory?
Well, I suppose that it depends a little bit on firstly how far you go. So if you go to 150, maybe you wanted to go a little bit, to have also 80, not to go a little bit lower than 100. So the more points you have, the more accurate the prediction is going to be. Okay. So it goes now 20, 100, 110, 120 should be fine. Otherwise, you need to see also the results that you get. If they're all on a line, for example, 100, 120, 120, 120, then it's really likely to be like this, but on the same line. Whereas if you have scattered values that Excel is unable even to plot a proper thing, like I don't know, just something like that, and that maybe the result is a little bit wrong, then you might want to do more cases, or vice versa. You need to be a little more conservative in what you obtain. So, for example, if you get an equation that is not perfectly mimicking the points, then when you get the result, you might be a little more conservative. So, for example, in this case, I have an equation that is not really on the points. It's close to the points, but not really on the points. So when you put a value here of, say, yes of 150, and you make a prediction with this curve, you might have something that is real or there. And again, it's engineering judgment. You look at the distance between these points to the curve, and you might say, okay, I have twice as much the mistake here, and you get the highest value if you want to be conservative. But again, it is engineering judgment. For projects of this kind, you need to to put. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Anyway, you need to make some reasoning. So you can't really rely on the software results. And another important thing, it is explained well in the calculation methodology of Wafflesuite. But by the way, this kind of comment is present also in other software available on the market in Australia for this type of calculations. Every time you run an analysis with a software of this kind, it's good practice to look at the table of the section 3 for the deemed to comply solutions. And if you get a result that is very distant from the results on that table, then you need to start thinking about what you're getting, So, as I said, the software to you before is not an oracle. It's not necessarily the case that the results that you plug in are correct. In the same fashion, it's not the case that the solutions provided in section 3 are correct. That's why we're engineers and we study a few years to get to this.
That's perfect. I think that answers kind of the questions that I've received. So I'll stop filming now, Fabs, and